Hey guys, Technomentary with a video for you guys. In today's video, we're going to talk about the iPad Mini 2 or the iPad with the Retina display for the very first time. Now, this iPad has been around for ages now, and this is why we're going to be talking about a brief history about this iPad, things about hardware, camera, battery, and performance, software, and finally discuss if the iPad Mini 2 second generation is really worth it going into 2022. Everything that you need to know about this iPad, whether you have one of this laying around or considering buying one of these iPads. So let's go ahead and talk about the iPad Mini 2 here now. The iPad Mini 2 was released back in November of 2013. Now going into 2022, later this year, it will make the 9th anniversary, the 9th year since this iPad has been around. Now 9 years for a tech or any sort of device you have, it's pretty much considered old in a lot of ways in terms of age, hardware, software, and just simply old in a lot of aspect here. Now the iPad Mini 2 again is very similar to the Mini 1. If you take a look at it, it has that 7.9-inch display. You got 1536 by 2048 pixel resolution, and then in terms of camera, you do get two different cameras. You got a front camera and a back camera here. As you can see here, we can take pictures on the back one. We can also take actual videos here. Now pictures, videos, they are pretty decent for most part here. You can even take time lapses on this device, so pretty good camera. And it's a 5 megapixel camera on the back here that you have one single one. There is no flash here, so you won't be able to use it for night light or even things like that, so no flash for you. But it does have a front camera here. As you'll notice right here, does have 1.2 megapixel camera, so you can technically work it with FaceTime and other video chat platform as well. The pictures are definitely not going to be nowhere near against something newer that came out recently, but that is there for you. Now the Mini 2 is only one of the very first devices we saw that small, lightweight size, very small, lightweight, handy to move around. Now this is up to 6 versions. So if you're looking at the Mini 2 in terms of timeline, there is the 6th edition that Apple recently announced with a full body screen display with a lot going on for it. So from 2 to 6, a lot of things of course has changed, and the thing you want to talk about is the hardware on this device here. So the Mini 2 does have a A7 Bionic chipset on it compared to the newer devices which has that A15 Bionic chip. This is a pretty older chip, but it does have 1 gig of RAM. So when it comes to maybe just doing simple stuff, you're going to be able to do the simple stuff, but nothing major intensive that's going to require the iPad to actually push out a lot of power to it. The other thing we want to talk about is the price point of this device when it really came out. So when it came out, it was pretty expensive. You paid almost $399 for just the 16 gig model, which again, 16 gig of storage does not seem like anything today, but now you could also have got this device in 32 gig, which you paid $499, 64 gig, which you paid $599, and 128 gig, which is the base nowadays in 2022 for most Apple device here. You paid a whopping $699, so $300 more to get upgraded storage, because with iPads you just simply can't put in a chip or a SD card and have more storage. You're going to be relying on the actual device or using iCloud storage, which you pay extra for. Now let's talk about the battery life on this device here. Surprisingly, the iPad Mini 2 does have a pretty good battery, and that's the case because it's a bigger body device, so it does hold a 6471 mAh battery, which again is supposed to last about 10 hours of video playback. So if you're constantly using it to maybe watch Netflix or something like that, it's supposed to last you for that long. So pretty huge battery here. Now let's talk about probably the biggest thing on this iPad is the software version. As you can see here, the Mini 2 does not go past iOS 12.5.4. So that's the most up-to-date version software you can get on this device here, which kind of sucks because we're on iOS 15 now, and that's kind of a big issue for us. Why is it a big issue? Well, simply when you're trying to download any apps, you're going to be hit with these error messages, which you'll see here, which is going to say older version of this app is what you can pretty much download, because the newer versions are not compatible. They need at least iOS 13, 14, or even 15 in some cases. So when you're trying to download basic apps that are newer, that rely on having a updated hardware, this iPad simply can't do it. As you can see here, we were able to download all of these popular apps, and that's because we used the method which we discussed in another video, which is very important, by the way. If you have this device, to make it any useful, you might want to check that out, which will leave it in the description section for you guys. So talking about this device, if you go to App Store, in terms of software, because on iOS 15, it's a 3 generation old in terms of the software, is that when you try to download anything that's new or relevantly new, you certainly hit this wall where it doesn't allow you to download that again. And that's kind of pretty frustrating when it comes to doing anything pretty much. If you want to get, let's say, HBO Max here, we try to download it here. Again, when it comes to downloading, it's very iffy because we don't know if it's going to download or not when you try to install it. Again, when it does, sometimes it will install and you try to open up, it crashes or simply doesn't want to open and it wants to update itself here. Now, other things to consider about this iPad is that it doesn't support the Apple Pencil. So if you're a creator that wants to do graphic design or Procreate or any of the newer stuff to use it, or if you're using it for work, like adding an additional keyboard to it that is Apple keyboard, it's not supported. You can definitely use a third-party one, but even those aren't that great again. Now, let's really talk about this device. Is it really worth it in 2022 or not? Well, this device, considering that you can pretty much get this device now for 60-70 bucks pre-owned pretty much on eBay or Amazon, because you can't find these new anymore, which we'll leave a link in the description section for you guys if you guys are looking for a cheaper iPad. This is pretty cheap in terms of other Apple device like the newer iPads, which are around $600 or more. You're not spending a lot for a device that's sort of pretty much aged but does a couple things well. And again, if you're really looking for a device for work, school, or simply social media, graphic design, or even video watching or editing, this device is not really a good device for you. The only reason why this device is good is probably for a younger kid who's looking to just simply use apps and don't mind waiting for this device. Because when you open up any sort of apps here, you'll notice here, again, like you opening up YouTube here, it does take quite a bit of time to download it, to open up. Even when it opens up, when you're browsing around, you'll notice here you have to give it a second or so to let it actually recognize your click and then load the video for you. But when it does load, it does work all right for us there. So when it comes to all of that and much more, this iPad, again, has aged, but probably good for someone that's simply really light and just use a couple of apps. Because we'll notice here we can open up certain app, but we do have to be patient. When you open up apps, either if it opens up, it will again ask that you update it. When you try to update it, you simply can't update it any longer, which again can be very frustrating for us. As you can see here, we're waiting some time before we can download or even open up an app to really use it fully functionality. Now, when it comes to even things like browsing here, you'll notice here it does take a little bit to render the graphics and the text here. Again, somewhere between 5 seconds to 10 seconds can add up over time because you're simply just waiting and waiting. Again, time really matters for you. Probably not a device you would be interested in. So overall, is the iPad Mini 2 worth it in 2022? Our simple answer is going to be no, just because of not being able to update past iOS 12 and apps just simply not working, and it's just being very laggy, and performance wise it's not a device that you would consider for most things. But what it's going to be worth it for is if you already have this device laying around and you wanted to give it to like a child or someone that doesn't mind, waiting for some time to let the apps that do work, which again are older version of the apps themselves, that might be fine for you. But overall, device really isn't really worth it for general purpose usage. Again, as we mentioned, if you're light user, really don't care about all of those fancy stuff, probably okay for you, but even then it's kind of a push. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and review. We want to hear from you guys. If you guys use this device, have this device, leave a comment in the comment section. Thanks for watching, guys. See you guys next time.